양송이. 싱싱한 양송이를 여기다가 추가로 더 넣어볼게요.
알겠습니다. 거의 뭐 산 쌓고 있는데요.
아, 이런 거 좋아요.
바다익선.
이 정도 높이면 어몽길 대장님도 올라가기 어려워요.
먹어가면서 올라가야 돼.
네. 야, 이거 잘 넣어야 되는데.
와, 진짜 쌓았어.
저는 여기다 닭갈비를 넣어볼게요.
우와. 많이. 어우, 좋다.
우와.
이제 기다리면 되는 걸까요?
뭔가를 하셔야죠.
또 뭐 있어요?
국물이라도 조금.
오, 좋죠.
국물? 무슨 찌개? 혹시?
된장찌개.
네.
너무 좋은데요?
된장찌개. 봄에는 무슨 된장찌개 좋아하세요?
봄에는 사실 뭐 달래도 있고
네.
냉이도 있고.
냉이도
네.
좋죠.
냉이 좋아요. 저희
네.
집 주변에 보면은
네.
지천으로 널린 게 냉이거든요.
아, 진짜요?
저 밭에 가서 냉이 한번 캐보시겠어요?
밭에 있어요?
네.
네.
냉이 아세요 혹시?
아유, 저 메이드 인 컨트리입니다. 네.
그러면은
예산?
직접 가셔서
네.
냉이 한번 캐보실게요.
얼마나 키울까요?
한 줌.
한 줌 정도?
네.
한 줌 정도?
우와, 여기 지천에 널려 있다는 게 실감이 나는데요?
일단 꽃피면은 못
네.
먹어요.
아,
꽃핀 거 뽑으면 안 돼요.
꽃핀 거는
눈을
내비두고.
크게 뜨시고
네.
이제 냉이 한번 찾아보세요.
이야.
저거 아닌가?
여기.
아, 여기도
네.
있고.
네.
잘 보신, 시력이 좋으신 것 같아요.
어우, 2.0입니다.
아.
이거 잘 뽑았다. 오, 그렇지.
오, 완벽해.
이거지.
와.
네,
이거지,
뿌리까지.
이거지.
이거 신났다요, 신났다. 거의 삶 같은데요, 삶?
이렇게 냉이 맞나?
냉이 맞아요. 맞죠?
아닌 것 같은데.
아니에요?
아니에요?
민들레예요?
냉이 아닌데?
아니라고요?
다 넣어, 그냥.
냉이가 생기는데 냉이 아닌 것 같아요.
아, 이런
냄새 안 나.
짝퉁.
냉이 친구야.
아,
냉이's friend? 이거는요?
이게 냉이에요?
좀 다르지 않아요?
이거는?
아,
네,
이거
맞아,
약간
이게,
냉이 향이
예,
올라오네.
아니야.
여기 있다.
어디?
이거. 이게 맛있는 거예요, 이게. 여기. 이게 맛있는 거예요, 이게. 오, 냉이 맞아.
맞아요?
네.
이야.
들고 이렇게.
냉이 잘 골라서 잘 따신 것 같아요. 향도 진하고 이걸로
네.
된장찌개 끓이면 맛있을 것 같아요.
향긋한 그 막 된장찌개.
자, 이제 이걸 가지고
네.
저희 들어가서 냉이 된장찌개 한번 끓여볼게요.
너무 좋아요.
이야, 우리가
자,
직접
가시죠.
캔
네.
냉이로.
아, 냄새 좋다.
너무 뿌듯하다.
아,
기대돼요, 너무.
튀지 않게 살살.
오!
튀지 않게 살살.
오! 갓 담아주고.
어우, 냉이.
그대로. 이야, 이걸 또 이렇게 솥에다가 하니까 또 그림이 다르네요.
개봉 박두.
박두.
와. 우와.
와, 대박. 금세 이 양송이 수분이 지금 저기 졸아 들어가서 아까 되게 컸는데 얘네들이 얇아졌어요. 얼른 먹어야 돼요.
빨리 먹어봐야 될 것 같습니다.
뭐부터 먹을까요?
우선은 이거부터.
그러니까
네.
저희가 양송이를 때려 넣었잖아요.
한번 시식을.
네.
네.
빨리 먹어요, 빨리.
맛있게
일단
드세요.
칼럼 리스트
네.
딱 한번 또 맛평가를 해주셔야죠 또.
알겠습니다. 야, 뭐 제가 뭐 두말할 필요가 있나요?
맛있어요?
아니 원래 이제 닭갈비 할 때 버섯을 많이 넣으시기도 하는데 무엇보다 양송이 향이 좋잖아요. 그러니까 이 닭갈비 특유의 그 감칠맛이랑 양송이 특유의 건강하고 그런 아름다운 향이라고 해야 되나요? 그 향긋한 향이 어우러져서 정말 신선하고 맛있습니다.
거기다가
네.
파스타 미쳤어요.
파스타도 먹어보겠습니다.
와.
이게 저희가 밥이 아니고 오늘은 특별히 파스타를 넣었잖아요.
네.
여기도 양송이 향이 배었어요. 엄청.
다 배겨 있어요.
아까 양송이 넣을 수 있는 만큼 최대한 많이 넣으셨잖아요.
듬뿍 넣었어요.
네, 그래서 아마
와.
양송이 향이 많이 배었을 거예요.
와, 이게 재료를 막 엄청 넣으니까 수분감과 향이
와, 진짜 맛있다. 와.
양송이. 이거는 진짜 처음부터 양송이를 넣고 같이 끓인 그런 진성의 양송이 향이 납니다, 면에서. 오 마이 갓.
와. 너무 맛있어요.
아, 이거는 정말 장난 아니다.
자, 이번에는
냉이 된장국
냉이
한번
된장국을 조개살도 같이.
야, 아니 된장 향, 이 색깔도 되게 특별한데요?
엄마가
그쵸,
만들어주신
집된장.
집된장.
하나도 허투루한 게 없어요.
와.
봄 냄새.
한번 먹어보겠습니다. 조개살과 양송이.
이 풀향. 방금 우리가 뜯어서 방금 넣어서 이 뿌리가 또 살아있어요. 와, 이 봄 내음새를 그냥 푹 담았어요.
어우. 딱이다, 진짜. 와. 아니, 냉이도
네.
방쾌하잖아요.
네,
드셔보세요.
진짜.
아삭아삭하게.
아, 저도 먹고 있는데 이 직접 딴 게, 방금 딴 게 정말 티가 나요.
와, 진짜 맛있다. 와.
워낙 잘 드셔가지고.
안녕하세요.
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 네. 와. 이게 뭐예요?
어머나.
와.
아유, 감사합니다. 야,
와.
블루베리.
후하다, 후해, 보여,
어머나.
후해. 이야.
실례지만 다 어디서 오신 거예요?
저희 부여 미식살롱이라고요.
네.
네 농가가 함께 하고 있는 곳이거든요.
그러면은
와.
블루베리랑 뭐 이것저것 들고 오셨는데 다 이거 농사 지으셔가지고 만드시는 거예요?
그럼요. 저희가 직접 농사 지은 거예요.
와.
각 농가마다
네.
작목이 다 달라요.
아.
양송이,
네.
그다음에 블루베리, 또 목장하시는 분도 계시고.
네.
네, 그래서
유제품.
네.
와.
아, 맛있겠다. 양송이가 부각이거든요.
아, 오늘 정말
너무 맛있다.
갓 만든 모든 걸 다 먹고 있습니다.
진짜 오늘 저희 이렇게 또 맛있게 또 이렇게 대접해 주셔서 너무너무 감사드리고요. 정말 맛있게 먹었습니다.
저희가 더
네.
감사드립니다.
네.
우선 저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 이 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 프릭스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colors, grab an apron. It's the best defense against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat, and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sam like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit. A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. A newly released Pentagon document says the Trump administration believes South Korea is capable of taking primary responsibility for deterring North Korea. Experts suggest this reflects a move towards selective U.S. engagement and a reduced regional military role. Tensions are growing in Minneapolis after a federal immigration officer shot and killed 37-year-old Alex Pretti, making him the second person to be fatally shot in the city during the immigration enforcement crackdown this month. At least 7 people have been killed after a massive winter storm hit the United States, bringing heavy snowfall and cold temperatures. Over 1 million households lost electricity, and thousands of flights have been canceled across the country. We begin this morning with the Trump administration's new national defense strategy that could signal a shift toward a more asymmetrical Seoul-Washington alliance. Now, that's according to the director of the Korea program at the Stimson Center, James Kim, on Sunday. His comments come after the Pentagon said Friday that Seoul can take primary responsibility for deterring North Korea, citing its strong military defense spending and conscription system. It added U.S. support will remain important, but more limited. Kim said the new NDS reflects a move towards selective U.S. engagement and a reduced regional military role. He added that signs of the shift are already visible, including ongoing efforts to transfer wartime operational control, and warns that broader U.S. geopolitical priorities could further limit American involvement abroad. So the Trump administration released its new national defense strategy and said South Korea is capable of taking primary responsibility for deterring North Korea, suggesting a possible shift in its policy toward Pyongyang and raising concerns here in South Korea. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Min Jung-un, professor at Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Min, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So this new defense strategy suggests South Korea will take more responsibility, as the United States prioritizes defending its homeland. What's your take on this?
Yes, the National Defense Strategy, NDS, of the second Trump government prioritizes the safeguarding core U.S. interests, like protecting the homeland security and expanding influence in the Western Hemisphere or American continent, and tracking the rise of China and promoting stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. And to that end, the Trump government wants U.S. allies and partners to play more active roles in addressing regional security threats. So for South Korea, Washington expects Seoul to cope with North Korea's conventional military threats, and U.S. will provide critical but more limited support against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. So the South Korean government, I think, needed to enhance its military capabilities and develop the ROK-US alliance into a more balanced and future-oriented strategic alliance. And I think that the South Korean military has got sufficient military capabilities to effectively cope with North Korea's conventional military threats. So it's about time for the two countries, South Korea and U.S., to deliver how they would maintain the airtight security on the Korean Peninsula based on South Korea's expanded roles and contributions. So I think the shifting strategic interests of the United States provide South Korea with their significant momentum to make progress for securing its self-defense capabilities and play a more active role in the security and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific.
I see. And this Pentagon document also makes no mention of denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. What does this suggest about the Trump administration's North Korea policy in 2026?
Well, again, the NDS made it clear that North Korea poses a direct military threat to South Korea and Japan, although many of North Korea's large conventional forces are old or poorly managed. And South Korea must stay vigilant about the threat of North Korean invasion. And in addition, North Korea's nuclear forces impose a threat to the United States, and they are growing in size and sophistication. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the document did not include the denuclearization of North Korea or the Korean Peninsula. So I think that the Trump government will be open to pursue a small deal or arms control negotiation with North Korea in order to practically control North Korea's nuclear and missile capabilities, rather than insist a big deal that it pursued or failed to reach an agreement in the past. And it is known that President Trump is the only person who can make a decision about what U.S. will do to improve the relationship with North Korea. And considering that President Trump want to meet Kim Jong-un again, so it is likely that the Trump government's North Korea policy this year will be focused on active engagement through its efforts to revitalize summit diplomacy between the two leaders. So it is expected that U.S. will be more active to reach out to North Korea, and President Trump's visit to Beijing this April can be a turning point for the dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang.
Right, and meanwhile, South Korea's prime minister was in the United States over the weekend, and he met with Vice President J.D. Vance and proposed the idea of the United States sending a special envoy to North Korea as a way to improve relations between Washington and Pyongyang. Do you think this could be an effective measure?
Yes, personally, I think that sending a special envoy to Pyongyang with President Trump's letter to Chairman Kim Jong-un could be a good way to resume the communication between the two countries. It is known that Vice President Vance asked Prime Minister Kim what would be a good approach for the U.S. to take in order to improve relations with North Korea. And Prime Minister Kim answered that only President Trump has the will and ability to improve the relationship with North Korea. And sending a special envoy to Pyongyang, whether it could be Vice President Vance or someone else, could be one way of expressing a willingness to improve the relationship. And taking into account that the inter-Korean relations are unfortunately at the bottom, so revitalizing the summit diplomacy between President Trump and Chairman Kim is the only possible way currently of bringing North Korea back to the negotiating table. So attention has increasingly turned to the leadership role of President Trump. And as you know, again, President Trump already met Kim Jong-un 3 times and continues to send a love call to Pyongyang since returning to the White House. So I think South Korea is working closely with Washington to create conditions that could encourage Pyongyang to come back to the dialogue. So, and then again, the President Trump will visit to Beijing this April. So there is a growing expectation that President Trump will meet Kim Jong-un at the Panmunjom by the time.
I see. And another issue that came up during his talks with Vance was investigation into the recent data breach at Kupang. And Kim said the Korean government did not take discriminatory action against Kupang. Do you think the government is succeeding in reassuring Washington that the Kupang dispute will not escalate into a diplomatic issue?
Yes, I think so. It is known that when talking to the Prime Minister Kim, the Vice President Vance fully understood the circumstances facing Kupang under the Korean system. The Prime Minister Kim mentioned that there had been a delay of over 50 months in reporting the leak of information to a huge number of Korean customers, and the groundless accusations had recently been made at the President Lee Jae-myung and the Prime Minister Kim Min-seok. And here, the Prime Minister Kim made it clear that there was no discrimination against American companies regarding the Kupang dispute, and the Vice President Vance expressed his understanding about the situation. And Prime Minister Kim also mentioned that the Kupang dispute will be managed in a controlled manner in order to avoid misunderstandings and overheating between the two governments. And he also assured that the Korean government would share the information about the case with the U.S. counterparts. So I think the Kupang dispute will not escalate into a diplomatic issue because the two governments have a clear understanding about the case through close communications. And as Prime Minister Kim mentioned, since the Lee Jae-myung government took office, the relationship between South Korea and U.S. has become stronger, and it is not easily swayed by just the business lobbying. But meanwhile, I needed to point out this, that what the Coupang investors did against the Korean government is likely to make the Korean customers' perception on the Coupang get much worse, and it will negatively affect maintaining its business in South Korea.
Right, I see. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Min, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Civil unrest is growing in Minneapolis after ICE agents shot and killed a U.S. citizen this weekend, prompting Governor Tim Walz to demand the immediate withdrawal of federal forces. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Tensions in Minnesota have reached a boiling point following the second fatal shooting by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis this month. Crowds gathered on Sunday to mourn Alex Pretti, a former nurse at a veterans hospital. Demonstrators marched toward Minneapolis City Hall chanting, "ICE out," breathing freezing temperatures to demand an end to what they call an unchecked federal surge. Despite the public outcry and the escalating unrest, federal authorities maintain that their operations will not be scaled back.
Our Title VIII immigration mission continues unabated here in Minneapolis, despite yesterday's tragedy that was preventable by folks making better choices, politicians, journalists, and would-be anarchists and rioters.
State officials are pushing back. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz directly addressed the Trump administration, questioning the strategy behind the federal deployment that has now resulted in 2 deaths, including 37-year-old Renee Good earlier this month.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state? You thought fear, violence, and chaos is what you wanted from us, and you clearly underestimated the people of this state and nation.
The circumstances surrounding Pretti's death remain disputed. It has been confirmed that Pretti was armed and held a valid license to carry. Authorities claim he intended to harm agents, but video footage from the scene has not definitively supported these claims, and a witness identifying himself as a U.S. veteran stated that Pretti did not appear to be resisting at the time of the shooting. The instability is drawing concern from businesses in the state. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, representing over 60 CEOs of major state-based companies, issued a statement Sunday calling for an immediate de-escalation. The chamber emphasized that the business community has been in communication with the White House and local mayors, warning that the current volatility is threatening the state's economic stability. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And staying in the United States, a historic winter storm has slammed the country, bringing heavy snow, ice, and widespread power outages. At least 7 people have been killed and over 1 million households lost electricity, while thousands of flights were canceled as states from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast declared emergencies. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
At least 7 people have been confirmed dead as a massive winter storm continues to batter large parts of the United States, bringing heavy snow and ice from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast. According to authorities on Sunday, the deaths mostly stemmed from hypothermia due to the freezing temperatures. The powerful winter storm has also knocked out electricity for more than 1 million customers, with outages reported as far west as New Mexico. Utility crews are working to restore power, but icy conditions and fallen trees are slowing repair efforts in many areas.
It could take days to restore power, and we know behind the storm, there's more cold air. So if you are stuck without power, you're going to want to find a way to make sure that you can keep your home warm and keep yourself warm for potentially days after this storm.
The storm has also triggered widespread travel chaos. According to flight tracking site FlightAware, more than 10,800 flights scheduled for Sunday were canceled nationwide, following more than 4,000 cancellations on Saturday. Airports across the east and west were forced to shut down or significantly scale back operations as runways and aircraft were coated in ice. Calling the storm historic, President Donald Trump on Saturday approved federal emergency disaster declarations for a dozen states, while the U.S. Department of Homeland Security said 17 states and the District of Columbia declared weather emergencies as the storm intensified. Officials are urging residents to avoid unnecessary travel and prepare for extended power outages, as forecasters warn that dangerous conditions may linger even as the storm system gradually moves eastward. 이승재, Arirang News.
Former South Korean Prime Minister Lee Hae-chan has passed away at the age of 73. He died in Vietnam on Sunday while on a business trip as the senior vice president of the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council. His remains are scheduled to arrive at Incheon International Airport early on Tuesday morning, with a memorial altar to be established at Seoul National University Hospital. A 7-term lawmaker, Lee was a heavyweight in South Korean politics, serving as prime minister under the Nomuyon administration and education minister under Kim Dae-jung. Often called a kingmaker of the liberal bloc, he was instrumental in the elections of Presidents Moon Jae-in and Lee Jae-myung. The ruling Democratic Party has designated a party-wide mourning period, honoring him as a pillar of the nation's democracy. A small county in southern part of South Korea is drawing attention with a bold travel policy, allowing visitors to explore the area at half the expenses. And the effort is already paying off, delivering a boost to the local economy. Our culture correspondent Park Ko-nu was there to show us how.
Imagine being able to travel for half the cost. This is what's happening in Gangjin-gun, one of the southernmost counties on the Korean peninsula, surrounded by a beautiful ocean and bays spread with vast reed fields. Known for its clean environment and rich biodiversity, Gangjin has been offering pre-registered travelers half of their spending in local gift certificates since 2024, usable on their next visit. This policy aims to revitalize the region as its population declines, now standing at just over 30,000. And since this year's program began on January 19th, visitors have already been pouring in, despite Korea's recent cold snap.
I hadn't visited before because it felt far away, but this policy makes it very appealing, as you can enjoy traditional culture and explore around. If it expands nationwide, I think more young couples will choose domestic travel.
The numbers back that up. In the first year, more than 15,000 groups joined the program, spending around $4.5 million. Just a year later, participation jumped to nearly 40,000, with spending more than doubling. And as hands-on cultural travel continues to grow, Gangjin is fast becoming more than just a sightseeing stop. Thanks to its rich natural environment, Gangjin is the perfect place to enjoy authentic rural culture. And at this time of year, one of the highlights is definitely tangerine picking. And you can just walk through vinyl houses and pick fresh tangerines right off the trees and enjoy a fun hands-on experience. When life gives you tangerines, every piece of fruit delivers a message to those tired of city life, offering a taste of farmers' hard work and a slower, more natural rhythm of life.
The half-price travel policy has had a huge impact on our local economy. Guest numbers at our farm are up about 30%. As the local population is limited, visitors from outside are bringing new energy into this rural community.
And the experiences don't stop at tangerines. Depending on visitor taste, Gangjin offers a wide array of activities, including traditional tea making and tasting, as the places where Korea's first commercial tea was produced. Visitors can gently place tea leaves into molds to experience the making process firsthand and learn proper drinking etiquette along the way. Classic tea snacks like sweet bean jelly add even more depth and flavor to the experience. With so much to see, taste, and experience all at half the price, Gangjin is turning simple moments from tangerines to tea into experiences worth remembering. 박건우, 아리랑 뉴스, 강진.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has said that a historic U.S. security guarantee is 100% ready for signing. He emphasized that this document now only needs a signing date before heading to Congress for ratification. The announcement on Sunday follows a breakthrough weekend in Abu Dhabi, where military officials from Ukraine, the U.S., and Russia held their first direct trilateral negotiations in years. Zelenskyy said the talks aim to push forward efforts to end Russia's nearly 4-year invasion, but stressed that Ukraine's territorial integrity remains non-negotiable. Negotiators are set to return to Abu Dhabi on February 1st for the next round of talks to finalize terms. In Indonesia, authorities on Sunday resumed the search for 82 missing people after a landslide killed at least 10 in West Java province. Heavy rains, which began the day before, triggered the collapse early Saturday in Pasir Langu village, West Bandung. Rescue teams continued operations as weather conditions improved, but unstable ground and rain warnings slowed efforts and limited the use of heavy machinery. Officials said the collapse buried homes in a residential area, forcing evacuations and raising concerns about further landslides with more rain forecast for the region. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened Canada with a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if it makes a trade deal with China. Trump said on Saturday that such a trade deal would allow Beijing to use Canada to bypass U.S. tariffs, calling it a direct threat to American economic interests. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney responded on Sunday, asserting Canada respects its U.S. trade obligations and seeks only to rectify specific tariff issues with Beijing, not make a free trade deal. American climber Alex Honnold stunned onlookers in Taipei on Sunday by free-soloing the tallest building in Taiwan. Honnold scaled the 508-meter Taipei 101 skyscraper without ropes or safety equipment. He completed the climb in 91 minutes as thousands watched from below, with the event broadcast live by Netflix. The climb took place with official approval from Taipei 101 and city authorities after being delayed one day by wet weather.
Deep freeze continues across much of Korea, with cold wave alerts remaining in place. And this cold air mass with wind chill will remain in place for a while. Be sure to stay well bundled up. And it's not going to be as freezing as last week, but morning temperatures in Seoul will stay near -10 degrees Celsius. And even during the day, afternoon highs will struggle to climb above freezing in most parts. Turning to precipitation, starting tonight, snow is expected in parts of the western regions. Snow will begin along the west coast of Chungcheongnam-do province and Jeju, continuing into tomorrow morning. The Jeollado provinces could see 1, 2, 3 centimeters of snow. At the same time, dry weather alerts remain in place for the eastern regions, and with several wildfires already reported, it's very important to be cautious with anything that could spark a fire. This afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 0 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees in Daegu, under partly sunny skies in most areas.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
To set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
안녕하세요. 저는 방크에서 활동하는 홍단비 청년연구원입니다. 대한민국이라는 국가가 존재한다는 사실을 전 세계에 알리는 공식적인 징표이자 국민을 하나로 통합하게 하는 힘을 가진 이것. 바로 태극기인데요. 일제강점기 당시 태극기는 우리 민족을 하나로 통합시키는 구심점 같은 역할을 하기도 했죠. 대한민국 국기인 태극기에 대해 잘못 알고 있거나 오해하는 부분들이 가끔 발견되더라고요. 제가 태극기에 담긴 의미와 역사에 대해 제대로 알려드릴게요. 최초의 태극기는 1882년에 처음 만들어졌다고 해요. 이후 다양한 형태의 태극기가 제작됐다가 지금은 국가에서 국기를 체계적으로 관리하는 법을 만들어 시행하고 있어요. 태극기에 담긴 의미를 알아볼까요? 먼저 흰색 바탕은 밝음과 순수, 그리고 평화를 사랑하는 우리의 민족성을 나타내요. 태극기 가운데에는 태극 문양이 들어가는데요. 이 태극 문양은 우주 만물이 음양의 조화로 인해 생물을 얻고 발전한다는 대자연의 진리를 표현한 것이라고 해요. 다음으로 건공감리를 그려볼게요. 4개 모서리에 그린 사괴에는 각기 다른 의미가 있어요. 건괴는 하늘, 곤괴는 땅, 감괴는 물, 이괴는 불을 상징해요. 우리 선조들이 생활 속에서 즐겨 쓰던 태극 문양을 중심으로 만들어진 태극기는 우주와 더불어 끝없이 창조와 번영을 바라는 우리 민족의 이상을 담고 있답니다. 대한민국의 정체성과 자긍심을 드러내고 우리 민족을 하나로 뭉치게 하는 태극기, 우리의 자랑스러운 국가 상징입니다. 한국 바로 알리기, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, January 26th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Chuyeon.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And also Kim's with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's the start of a brand new work week, and we're starting with a headline that sounds cautiously hopeful. So despite Korea's long-running low birth rate crisis, the number of babies born has now risen for 15 consecutive months. So on paper, that sounds like progress. So Jiyeon, do you personally sense any change when it comes to childbirth or family with people around you?
Yes, as you mentioned, it is hopeful indeed. Positive reviews, positive numbers. So it does feel as though more people are having children than during the pandemic period. And at my second child's nursery, I have actually noticed that many families welcoming new siblings, brothers and sisters, and even a fair number with 3 children, a lot indeed. So in everyday conversations, there is a subtle sense of movement. However, that optimism doesn't fully translate into our reality. In Korea, we have 산후 조리원 or postpartum care center, and also pediatric clinics still very quiet, still feel quiet. So while the numbers may be improving, the overall atmosphere remains cautious rather than confident. In other words, the numbers look better, but the mood is still careful indeed.
I see. So what about you? What do you sense with people around you?
I actually went to a colleague's wedding over the weekend, and I have another, I think, 3 or 4 weddings to attend in the space of 3-4 months. So
that sounds a lot.
It's quite a lot, a lot of money that I have to give out. But I think this is definitely a positive sign towards, I guess, increasing the birth rate, because people need to get married in the first place to have kids. However, in order for the population to not shrink, the ideal birth rate is 2.0 or 2.1, which is far from South Korea's current birth rate, which is around, I think, almost 0.8. And although I have friends who have 2 kids, when I ask the ones who actually have 1 child, do you plan to have a second child? They actually say no, because of 2 reasons. One is financial burden, and they're not confident enough to go through the same process as they did through the first child. So I'm thinking, although they love the first child and they love kids, having a second one must be a very big burden for them. I wouldn't know, but then Chuyeon has 2 kids. She seems fine, so I'm thinking maybe we should get encouraged. For those who are, actually fearing of having a second child, I think Chuyeon could be the great example of having 2 kids.
Right, so I guess we'll hear more about your stance about this later. So that really captures the gap between optimism and reality. So more marriages may be a positive sign, but the hesitation to have a second child shows how far we still are from a sustainable fertility rate. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. South Korea has long struggled with one of the world's lowest birth rates. But recent data suggests a possible shift, with the number of births rising steadily for several months in a row. Yet behind the numbers, reality tells a more complicated story. For many young people, finding the confidence or the conditions to have children remains a major challenge. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at why the low birth crisis remains severe, why childbirth is not always seen as a realistic choice, and what kinds of policies are truly needed to address Korea's population challenge. So as we just saw in a video, the numbers may be moving, but the concerns clearly still hasn't disappeared. So the big question is this. So despite the recent uptick, Chuyeon, would you say Korea's low birth crisis is still as serious as ever?
You just said low birth rate crisis. The answer is yes, indeed. While the recent increase is encouraging, it hasn't fundamentally changed the situation. We are still dealing with some exceptional low birth rates. That's why we call it crisis by any global standard. According to the latest population data released last September, monthly births have been rising steadily since July 2024, and this marks 15 consecutive months of increase. And the total fertility rate in the third quarter of 2025 reached 0.81, which is up from 0.75 the year before. On the surface, that suggests a limited but meaningful improvement in our society in Korea. However, it's quite important to keep the broader picture in our mind. Even at this level, the birth rate remains historically low. As a result, Korea's natural population decline is still ongoing. While the trend is encouraging, as you mentioned, the underlying challenge remains very much unresolved. So the trend is improving, but the problem hasn't gone away, absolutely.
So it looks like even with 15 straight months of growth, the bigger picture hasn't really changed. And this issue actually isn't just being discussed here in Korea, it's also drawing attention overseas. So why is Korea's population decline also drawing attention overseas?
So this is a very interesting news. Tesla CEO Elon Musk recently appeared on a podcast in January 7th, and he actually commented on South Korea's falling birth rate, that it will lead to such a dire underpopulation that one day North Korea could just walk across the border and invade South Korea.
I wonder where he's getting
Easily
this
like that.
information.
Yeah, I don't know why. And this remark came as he discussed about the future of humanity, AI, and demographics. And now he actually made a similar comment back in 2023, saying that South Korea, the country, could shrink to 3 to 4% of its current population over 3 generations, and nothing will reverse this trend. Now, considering how much of an influential figure he is globally, his remarks actually, drew more attention to the seriousness of the aging population and low birth rate of South Korea. And he even mentioned that one day that adult diapers will exceed the number of baby diapers, which is
interesting.
It sounds quite funny and derogative, but at the same time, this could be the future of our country. So we need to really do something. Although there is an uptick in the number of birth rates, it's still not enough to sustain a population.
Right, I agree. So that's a stark and controversial warning, but it shows how seriously Korea's demographic outlook is being viewed globally. So against that backdrop, I am curious how younger generations themselves actually see childbirth today. So, Jim, what are young people really feeling about marriage and also having children?
Well, in fact, younger generation, the Gen Z, they actually have some mixed views on having children, having this family. Among unmarried respondents, Korea recorded the highest willingness to marry, even compared with overseas Gen Z respondents. Interesting indeed. In fact, 74% of young Koreans in Gen Z, they agreed that having children increases their happiness and life satisfaction. However, Japan recorded the lowest level of agreement. Many young Koreans still see children as a source of joy and fulfillment. This figure stands out as the highest among the countries surveyed, Korea. However, when it comes to actual plans, it's a totally different story. The story changes. Only 31% expressed a real intention to have children. So what we see is a clear gap between hopes and our reality. So positive views, but postponed choices.
I think that is really interesting, that gap where people are valuing children highly, yet hesitating when it comes to actually having children. And also on social media, I do see people kind of glorifying the marriage process as well. So that's quite interesting. So what is holding people back? So why do young people hesitate to have children despite having, in general, very positive views about them?
So if we look at another survey conducted by the same institute, it shows a slightly different perspective when asked the question, does having a child add a financial burden? Now, despite children bringing happiness and life satisfaction, many young Koreans, actually 93% of the respondents said kids do bring a sense of financial pressure. Now, compared with other countries, as you can see on the graph, Sweden, Japan, France, and Germany, many Korean millennials and young Gen Zs feel a strong financial burden when it comes to having a children. Now, in another survey, more than 50% of respondents cited economic burden as the main cause of the low birth rate. Other reasons included social changing attitudes, later marriages, and a difficult environment for raising children.
So the numbers do make it clear. For many, having a child feels less like an emotional decision and sometimes more like a financial calculation. So this brings us to a more personal question. So Jun, you have 2 kids. How important do you think is the financial aspect of it before you're ready to have children?
Very good question. And the answer would be yes and no at the same time, because, well, as you mentioned, financial stability is very, very important indeed. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. And when it comes to housing, childcare and education, well, money is quite important. And having raising 2 children myself, I can say the costs are very real and they add up very quickly. At the same time, perfect financial security is rarely achievable. And many families start before they feel completely, quote unquote, ready on paper. But money alone is never the whole story, you know. Becoming a parent also requires emotional, mental, physical readiness, that's what I say, and a willingness to learn along the way with the child. And what matters just as much is feeling stable and supported for yourself and also for the family, rather than being wealthy, having a lot of money. And without some financial footing, the emotional burden can grow heavier. And at the same time, a child is a blessing thing, you know, I don't want to call it a thing, but I just said it. But there is something deeply meaningful that money alone can never provide for the child and for the family. And it's not only about what you have, but how ready you are.
Right. Some people always say, like, I want to have kids when I'm ready, but the question is, when will that happen? It's very difficult.
Indeed, indeed.
So what are your thoughts on this, Kyun?
So I think, you know, money is not essential, but it's very important. But I think it all comes from parents' mindset of wanting to do everything for their child, wanting to give everything, and that comes at a cost, obviously. However, women are having kids at a later stage in their lives compared to the past. So it brings a heavier load on them when raising a child, especially if they have birth in their 30s. It's not easy raising a child. I'm sure Chuyeon would agree with me, because I have a lot of friends who have had their first child when they were in their 30s, and they said, Kyun, if you want to get married and have kids, this was a long time ago, try to have a child when you're in your 20s, when you're much younger, because if you have a child when you're in your 30s, look, it will be hard for you to keep up with a baby, as in, like, you know, the level of fitness, the level of energy, vitality you have when you hit your 30s compared to your 20s. I mean, I feel it too, like, oh my God, I don't really look forward to my 40s. But anyway, that's why I try to stay fit. So I think at the end of the day, it becomes a bit of a trade-off. Is it going to be economic stability over, or I guess, vitality or energy?
That's a good point. So that really puts things into perspective. It's not just about love or intention, but also long-term responsibility. And that really highlights the reality many young people are weighing today, not whether children are meaningful, but a lot of times it's about whether life allows room for them. So we also want to hear directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking, what is the biggest reason for hesitancy about having children? So here's what the results showed. Financial concerns are the biggest factor influencing attitudes towards children, cited by 69% of respondents. So this is followed by difficulties in the parenting environment at 13%, changing perceptions about having children at 12%, and concerns over career interruption at 6%. So these results largely line up with what we've been talking about. The hesitation isn't really about the value of having children, but the realities surrounding it, namely financial concerns. So we're now going to talk to someone from a country where low birth rates are also much talked about subject. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Adriana, a millennial from Italy, a country that's also long battled low birth rates. So hello, Adriana. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
So Adriana, how would you describe the current birth rate trend in Italy?
I mean, it's very similar to South Korea, I have to admit. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember that in the global chart was just above South Korea. So it has an incredibly low birth rate and is keeping declining over the years. Consider that nowadays Italy is one of the countries with the lowest fertility rate in Europe.
So we are on the same page. Then what do young people in Italy say are the main reasons for delaying or avoiding childbirth?
Well, young people say that the main reason are, of course, economic insecurity and the stable jobs, because many have low salaries and temporary contracts. And of course, another big problem is the high housing cost. Many people find also very hard to balance life, like work and family life. So especially for women is a big problem.
Adriana, I would like to ask the last question. What measures or policies is your country implementing to address low birth rates?
I do believe that Italy government is trying very hard, has introduced financial support for families, such as child allowances, birth bonuses, or tax benefits. And the government also has improved the parental leave. However, many people still think that these measurements are not enough to solve all the problems that I just mentioned before. And I also do believe that Italy has still a long way to go in order to solve this problem.
Right. I think the same applies to Korea as well. There's still lots to do. So thank you so much for sharing insight with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we've just heard from a young person from Italy that has a country that's also long battled low birth rates about the situation in her country, why young people are choosing not to have children, what policies are currently in place. And that raises a bigger question. So when we look beyond Korea, are there common traits shared by countries that are struggling with low birth rates?
Yeah, there are some similarities among Asia. Well, according to a recent democratic analysis birth gauge, it shows that many of the countries with the lowest birth rates, including Macau, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Korea, are clustered in Asia. Thailand and Singapore also rank among the top 10 lowest. So despite cultural differences, experts point to common structural pressures in these areas, in these countries. High housing costs and intense education expenses are recurring factors. In many of these societies, the cost of simply maintaining a decent life, a decent quality of life is incredibly high. Compared with other regions, raising a family feels financially riskier. So the challenge is less about culture and more about shared social and economic pressures. These pressures make starting a family feel risky regardless of their cultural background. So different cultures, but the same bill to pay.
Right, it is quite striking that how so many of those countries are in Asia. And for Korea, I think obviously education costs are a big part of the financial burden. So it comes back to the same issue, the high cost of everyday life. And that pressure doesn't just affect whether people have children, it also changes the way they raise them. So how is this, economic pressure reshaping parenting itself?
So recently, many people are just choosing to raise one child. And this is leading to this new culture of the VIB culture, which means very important baby. So because they're only raising one child, more parents these days, compared to the past, are spending more time with their kids and investing more, money as well. So this has led to this phenomenon of change in parents' view towards their children. They're seen as like a productive asset. They were considered a productive asset, back in the past, but now they're considered a consumer good, meaning that in the past, children would actually help out with their parents' work, doing farm work. But nowadays, it's quite the opposite. Parents feel that they have to spend more money to their children, are not expecting anything in return later when they grow up. So this phenomenon has changed. So parents' view towards children has just become, I don't want to say this, but it's become very financial. And that can become a burden as well. So that's why many parents are not really opting to have children or even 2 or 3, because when they just raise one, they know how much money and time needs to be put in, including effort to just raise a single child in today's society. So I think there has been a big shift in the way parents think towards their children.
I think that's also because back in the day, it used to be an agriculture society, and obviously having more children, people can help out like on the farm, for example.
But it's complete opposite now.
It's so different now. So this brings us to a question of then policy, Jian. So if that's the reality families are facing today, we're having children, it's a kind of luxury. What kind of policies do you think would be helpful in addressing the low birth rate?
I think we've mentioned this several times at New Gen. Cash incentives the government is providing.
It's always nice.
Always nice indeed. Certain amount of money to people, the family who have child. They do make a huge difference in our life. But in Korea, we have seen some companies offering up to 100 million won to encourage childbirth. However, money alone is not a fundamental solution for this. For many young people, the real concerns lie in career disruption, especially for women, household costs, which is very high, and the burden of education indeed. Unless these structural pressures are addressed, financial support will remain a short-term fix, short-term answer, rather than a lasting answer for them. So bonuses don't raise children, but systems do.
Very well said. So Kyun, you don't have any kids. So what kind of policies do you think would kind of encourage you to or help you feel less pressure about having them?
I think parents, especially working parents who actually want to have kids in the future, they shouldn't worry too much about taking maternity leaves. I know big companies, they provide very good systems, but I'm talking about SMEs, small to mid-sized companies. They don't have, I guess, concrete, good paid maternity leave. So many parents, especially men, are afraid to actually take the paid maternity leave because it's not long enough. It doesn't support them enough. So usually it's the women, the moms, who actually take the maternity leave with the fear of not being able to actually come back to their original position, fear of losing their jobs as well. And for men, this puts actually more pressure on them because they have to continue working and babysit at the same time. So I think if there are more concrete policies that support and help new parents to take a break from work to take care of their children, I think this would encourage them to have more kids, or to just start with one, having one to start off with. Because at the end of the day, I mean, money is good, but money cannot buy families.
I agree. So the recent figures may offer a hint of hope, but the conversation makes one thing clear. Without meaningful changes to everyday life, rising birth figures alone won't be enough to reverse the trend. And that's because behind the numbers is a personal decision. So for many young people, the question in a lot of cases isn't whether having children are meaningful or not, it's whether having them is truly possible. So if Korea wants a real turnaround, the solution won't come from short-term incentives alone, but from long-term reforms that make parenting a realistic choice for everyone. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Chia.
Thank you for having me, Sujin.
For coming in, also Kyun.
It's always a pleasure.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea? If you've signed a contract for a one room, obviously you're a pro. But the real deal begins now. Step 1. Housewarming. No need to buy toilet paper, diffusers or hand soap. You'll get them soon enough as housewarming gifts. And some are bound to pile up. There's nothing better to serve your guests than milpaeyu nabe. If you have Korean friends coming over, don't forget the extra garlic. Step 2. Garbage disposal. With great power comes great responsibility. You've had a good time, so let's get to work. It might be tempting to sweep everything into a trash can, but you have to separate your garbage. Not bothered? Beware that negligence is punished with a fine or public humiliation. Step 3. Drying rack. You're excited to live alone in Korea, but the fate of these items, hanger, storage, or a hanger. Go get fresh coffee outside. Jogging doesn't cost anything, and nothing beats instant rice. But keep one item around so that you don't get too lonely. Step 4. Pros of living alone. No mum. Cons of living alone. No mum. A new towel doesn't magically appear. You have to do the laundry regularly. If anyone gives a towel as a souvenir, take it. Get rid of mold immediately. Don't be lazy with the vacuum cleaner. Housework is an endless affair. Overwhelmed? Give your mum a call and thank her for everything she's done. Did you survive in your one room? Wait, you have an unwanted visitor. Call someone you fancy. Could be the right person for the job.